Welcome back to If You Only Knew, the podcast here at Indie Fringe. And we have a special guest today. I'm excited because I'm going to be talking to this person not only for the first time, but this is the first time I've ever experienced their work. And so I get to see this from the lens of somebody who has never had the pleasure of being able to see it before, through the layman's lens, as you would say. Um, Barry Keating, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming on and thank you for taking your time to come out.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Oh,
It really is.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. You know, a lot of people don't really need an introduction. I don't think you will need one from me. So if you would like to just give the people who may not exactly know who you are or may not know what Starmites is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired that work and just anything that you would like to say, please?
Okay, sure. Well, Starmites is my very first musical. In fact, it's the very first music I ever wrote. I came to New York in 1969 and just graduated Amherst College. And I had done a very radical rock musical. It was actually the second rock musical ever written, I believe.
Wow.
There was Hair, and then there was our show called The Dream Engine, which we produced at Amherst. And then at the same time, The Who was coming out with Tommy on records and Jesus Christ Superstar.
Nice.
So, anyway, we had this show, and we had gotten a very well known, great producer at the time, Joseph Papp, who had produced Hair, to come and see our show at Amherst. And he bought an option and said, I'm going to take this whole show with you guys in it and your cast, and we're going to do it at the Delacorte Theater at the end of the Shakespeare season. Well, that didn't happen. We all waited for that to happen, but he actually had to reconsider. It was an insane idea. Well, the whole second act was done nude. It was super political, obscene, unpolitically correct, and he would have gotten Mayor Lindsay into a lot of trouble if he had done that. So we didn't do it there, but he decided then to open the Newman Theater, which is the theater of the Public Theater, still there. He decided to open that. That didn't happen. We went through this huge saga. My friend Jim Steinman had written the show, and I was the director. And Jim suddenly became very famous about 8 years later. It's not really suddenly, but to the world suddenly, by creating the Meatloaf album. He wrote Total Eclipse of the Heart, and it's all coming back to me now for Celine. So he became this huge composer. Meanwhile, I was expecting to direct all these works of his, but there wasn't anything to direct because it was all rock concerts. So I went to him with this idea of our next show that we would write together, which would be called Starmites. And it was about this gang of kids in outer space. And he said, I can't do it. I can't. I'm just too busy doing all this rock and roll stuff. He was becoming hugely famous, and he said, I just don't want to write a musical anymore. He said, why don't you write it yourself? I said, oh, thanks a lot. I'm supposed to sit down and write music, from nothing. Thanks. Really, thank you, my friend. And he said, no, really, if I can do it, you can do it. So I didn't speak to him for a year. I was furious. And I went, and to make a long story short, I realized that I could. I don't know why, but I realized I could write. I played the piano, but I didn't read music well, but I played the piano classical. So Starmites I learned how to do while I was writing it, and I didn't even have my own piano for a while. I was going around to other people's pianos. Finally, didn't buy an apartment, but I rented an apartment where I could get a piano. And the first thing I had in the apartment before furniture was a piano, and I spent a summer writing the show. And I had a theater where basically I was a director actor up until that point, and I had friends who ran a theater which I had directed several successful things at. And we did a couple of the songs at a party when I was writing, and I wanted to see if I was insane or if this was actually good or not. And we did it like as a party thing, and everybody loved the two songs. And then we did a little evening a couple of weeks later, or maybe a month later, of 5 songs, and that went very well. So they scheduled it for the end of the summer. So I wrote it in a couple of months, went on, and it got a rave review in the New York Times. So I thought, here we go. This is, success. So this was in 1980. And what was the review? I actually have it memorized. First, there was Star Wars, then there was Star Trek. Now, at the Arc Theater, there is Starmites, certainly the mightiest, M-I-T-E, of the epics, a vest pocket musical nebulae of cheerful nuttiness.
Mm.
And then he went on and rave. So I thought, well, this is going to Broadway. This is going to be a big hit. Skipping, 8 years later, it finally did go to Broadway after a saga that you don't want to hear about, but it's like struggles and this and that, fun struggles. And my friend Stuart Ross came aboard to help me write the book. I had written the book, music and lyrics of this thing. So Stuart co-wrote the book and did a great job. And we got it to Broadway, where it was beloved by many, many people, including the New York Times and the Tony Committee. But it didn't last. The producers just didn't know how to keep it going until it got to capacity and full houses. So we had a big run at the Tonys. We didn't win, but we were nominated for 6 Tonys. And not nominated for the two Tonys we would have won, which would have been for Best Book, Stuart and I, and the Best Music, me. But we didn't have any competition. So everybody there they told me afterwards they all definitely were going to give us the Tonys for that. And then they were told, no, it has to have competition. And they wouldn't nominate any other thing. So anyway, so as soon as it closed, schools and places wanted to do it immediately. They thought they were going to have to wait years because it's really a perfect show for schools. So it has this huge life as a school show. High schools, colleges, community theater groups, have been doing it consistently for all these years. It opened in 88, 89. Yeah. And around 2001, it was doing so well, I decided to, and I used to go to see, like I'm coming to see this one, occasionally I'd go out to see them, and I go, oh, I wish I could make that a little better, or that was confusing there, it's a sci-fi show, and I put everything I liked into it, and plus the kitchen sink. So there was still room to make it clearer, to add fun numbers or whatever. So in about 2001, I revised the whole thing, wrote a few more songs, and so it's rentable either in its original form or in its adapted form. And Casey asked for permission to do an actual rewrite of the script, which I granted because she sounded cool and I liked her ideas. And what the heck? Why not see what it's like? She's done a wonderful job. I saw it last night. And anyway, so here I am. And that's the story of Starmites. By the way, at the Tony Award rehearsals, we won several times because they do a run through and they just have random people win. So you hear your theme song and all of that.
First of all, how many times have you had to tell that story of
There's no answer to that. I have idea.
I'm sure it's been
it's an epic story. Yeah. There's the story of the Dream Engine, the original show, and then the story of Starmites. Yeah. Most of the shows I've been involved with have these big stories to it.
Yeah. I think it's really cool that you were going out to the schools and things and actually looking at it from the lens of somebody who created it. What has been your experience as far as like when you do go out and see the work, whether it's been with those schools or even, I know you said Casey, you feel like she was cool, you granted her that access, and you seem to be pleased by that. But just, is it kind of surreal or?
Uh,
something else?
it's an amazing experience because, of course, it was disappointing. My dream was that, to be this big hit on Broadway, and it really looked like it was going to be.
Mhm.
So that was disappointing, but, it was the first show I ever wrote, so it's
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
I shouldn't really complain that much. And it did have a spectacular run and repercussions afterwards. Um, so to go to it is just a beautiful experience because, it's a show that it's sci-fi and it's a comic book. So people would immediately think, oh, it's just going to be frivolous.
Mm.
But as you'll see if you come to see it, it's really got a core, it's really got a
Mm.
heart, and it's really saying something. I didn't deliberately go about doing that, but it just sort of happens when you write something. I did find out, like they say, things write themselves.
Yeah.
Like I thought, I just wanted to make it interesting for a play that I knew it was going to be comic books and superheroes. So I immediately said, well, it's got to be a girl because that'll make it interesting. In those
Yes.
days, there were no, there was Supergirl who was pretty obscure and Wonder Woman,
Mhm.
but it was mostly male. Um,
Mhm.
out with playing a role in Starmites.
That's
So it's
incredible.
very gratifying. And when I'm invited out and come out to see it, it's really great to be, I'm a superstar where Starmites is done because I wrote the book Music and Lyrics, where most people don't know who the heck I am, but it's great to be famous occasionally.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Different sort of forms. So I wish that the intelligentsia and the big movers and shakers knew more about what I do.
yeah, well, hopefully after this they will. um,
One of these days, I've been
actually,
waiting.
I wanted to because you point something out there, writing the book, the music, the lyrics, the musical all together. I think the
I don't like writing all of it. This one, it just
okay,
came out. I
okay,
would much prefer just to write the music. That would be my
ah,
favorite. The
okay,
thing that I know less about, or the most, I know plenty about it, but it's from my unconscious. Music just I sit there and it comes. It might be a struggle
mm,
sometimes, but it just comes
yeah,
or it doesn't. The other stuff I have to work on, and
yeah,
so I feel less, it's much more real to just sit down and write. certainly the book is the hardest,
Hmm.
the least appreciated, and the hardest thing to write. And lyrics for me now, unless it's a subject,
Hmm.
they don't just come out of me. I don't just write songs like pop songwriters write.
Yeah.
It's got to be connected to characters and a
Yeah,
story.
yeah, that's important. See, that's where I was gonna. I'm glad you said that because my question was going to be, how do you feel being a? I guess they call it a multi hyphenated uh, talent.
Yeah, it's harder to do all that because nobody takes you seriously enough in one of the
Yeah,
ones.
yeah, yeah.
It's kind of
They always try to box
unrealistic.
you in or put you. Yeah.
And also to do it all is well, I couldn't do it anymore. I could do that when I was younger, but it's just it's not wise. The only reason I do it is if I can't find anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
who will do it.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's the other thing. I'd like to find a great collaborator to
Yes.
write some
Yeah.
more shows with.
Yeah.
Somebody who'd write the book and the lyrics. Just let me write the music.
I like that. I think it's important to what I think is admirable about that actually is the fact that you know that you don't want to do it, but you will do it, which is cool because it seems that you do have the ability to do it. But speaking on the fact that it is probably easier for you to just do
Well, the
music.
biggest things in musical, it's in theater anyway, is to collaborate. And I do love to collaborate, but it's very hard. It's like
Mm-hmm.
being married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It really is especially if you're writing something
Mm-hmm.
together. It
Yeah.
really is like a marriage, and with all the goods and the bads of it. But to write something, Starmites, I wanted to do it so badly, and it was so amazing that I could write
Mm-hmm.
it. That one just popped out. But I've been rewriting it over the years, years and years, because there's always something more to do. Why I didn't mind Casey doing a rewrite on it is it's that kind of show. Some
Mm-hmm.
shows aren't.
Mm-hmm.
They're set and you just do them. But Starmites is very flexible.
Now, as someone who hasn't had the pleasure of seeing it yet, what do you think the um, updates or rewrites? Do you think the rewrites needed to happen in the sense of it brings it to an updated to a 2023
Well,
version,
first of
or
all, Casey is female. You can imagine what I'm talking about.
yes, yes, yes,
I
yes,
can't put
yes,
it all
yes.
into words because I didn't write it myself. So it was great stuff. It was very very nice to see that all in there, and it was also it would have been awful if it's like humorless,
Yeah,
but she was very funny about it,
yeah, that's great. That's great. Let me.
and it also is authentic. I mean, it really is important to you know what it says as well. Because basically, it is a female character discovering her own power. It's always been that.
I think that's important. I actually.
It's really two female characters. The lead role is playing two characters. She plays her own alter ego,
Oh,
and they
okay.
each learn. One is an Earth girl who wants to be in inner space in a comic book world, and the other is a princess who wants to be ordinary, and she just wants to be on Earth and just be an ordinary girl, and it's played by the same person. And they both. Well, I won't say anything more.
What?
But
Okay, so now I have to ask, what even where does concept come from?
I have no idea. I know where it started. I've always loved comic books. I'm not as fanatic as an adult
Mhm.
as some people are, but growing up,
Mhm.
I really was a comic book fanatic. And actually, I've met Stan Lee himself. I met him in the 70s, and when I was still writing with Jim Steinman, we wrote a show that was based on Wagner's the opera Das Rheingold, and it had the character Thor in it.
Uh,
So he was very interested in possibly making this musical into a Thor musical called Ragnarok. This is back in
yes.
1970. This is like 1975.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was always I wanted this to be comic book. I wanted it to have an outrageous female character who's like a dragon lady. I've always thought that was fun, and I wanted a really wonderful, campy villain. That would be like Cyril Richard and Peter Pan when I was growing up. So I wanted that in it, and I wanted funny guys in it, like a gang of funny guys
Nice. Okay, I see.
in it. So then, so that was all equally important to me. And the girl character being the center of it just made sense for a musical. But all this other stuff with the split personalities and everything like that, I really don't know. And when I first wrote it, it did have a lot of loose ends. It might have been more interesting that way with the loose. A lot of people liked the very first one, the one that got the rave review in the New York Times right away. But it was quite crazy, 'cause I put anything I wanted into it. It was all a fantasy that I was doing it anyway. Then to get it to Broadway, it was like, okay, this and that, and they're all, everybody has a million opinions when you
Always.
do music. Um, I'm not going to say one person. There's just a lot of people working in theater right now doing innovative stuff. I would like to know them better and have them know what I'm about.
Okay.
But not one person, I don't know. It'd be like it's the people doing cutting edge stuff right now on either on Broadway or any place else.
And you spoke earlier about how collaboration is kind of like being in a marriage. What if you could pinpoint a singular thing when it comes to your collaboration philosophy, I guess? What do you think is something that you look for, or what works best for you?
Well, I'll say more about, maybe it's not quite the answer to your question, but in working with people over the years, um, I don't think I was the best collaborator at first. I've really learned over the years. I just didn't know. But when you're having like suggestions, and I used to say no a lot, like right away. "Oh, no, I don't think so." And it's first of all, it's very irritating to people, and you're squelching other ideas with it. So I learned over the years, sometimes painfully, when people are really mad at me. I've learned that if I don't think so right away, I don't say no right away. It doesn't matter. You can talk it through. And I've also found that in a similar mode, if the two of you are completely at odds on something, I used to be in a position where sometimes I could make the final decision. I was in the dominant position, or the one who like thought it up first, or was in charge in some way, so I could overrule somebody. It's not a good idea to do that. I've found that there's another way that neither of you can see. And so if you both agree that you won't do something unless you both agree on it, it seems like, oh no, that's going to be trouble. Then you might not wind up with anything, but it doesn't work that way. there's like another there's another way. I've been watching. Have you been watching Suits on?
I've seen a few
Yeah,
episodes.
I've been watching that a lot now, and there's like a gimmick in it. It happens a lot, but it's fun. It's always interesting. They just come to an impossible situation. It's just not going to happen,
Mhm.
and they just have to rest and just let it go for a minute, and then come back, and they just approach it in a whole different way.
Mm,
There is another way of looking at it. You
yeah,
just see these two ways, and there's another way, and that's what comes up with the best solutions in place.
yeah,
It's probably a lesson in life as well. It's rather than force or dominate, there
mm,
is, if you just relax, it's terribly hard to relax about it because you go, but we got to move on
yeah,
with this.
yeah,
Somebody's got to make a decision,
yeah,
and that is true sometimes, but don't do that right away.
yeah.
Give it a lot of shots. Usually, there's another way.
Yeah, well, I think there's power in patience. I was listening to something one time, and they said when you don't know what to do nothing. Because
Yes.
eventually the world, the universe finds a way to kind of give you the answer, or at least give you the time that you need to properly think about making the right
Yeah,
decision.
it's like don't just do something, stand there.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
So yes, no, I'll that
hmm
answered my question. All right, we're gonna switch things up a little bit. What's your favorite piece of random knowledge that you have?
I'd say that to one can live one's life. You can live your life as though you are responsible for everything that happens. It's made up. It's not true. It's not untrue. Um, but if like everything that happens to you or to me, everything that happens to me, I am responsible for. I
Yeah.
can't say it was somebody else's fault or it was chance. It's like I'm creating my life, even if things are happening that I say I don't like. If I behave uh, as though I'm causing it, then there's a possibility I could change it. If I'm not causing it, there's no possibility. I have no control over anything.
Yes.
So to behave as though I do, or this is what I want, somehow for some reason I want this, I may want to change it, but first I have to acknowledge that I want this to happen.
Yeah.
It's all like, if you go about that as a belief uh, system, no. And that you have to convince others of. But if you behave that way, it's just like you're just there's exercises I guess in swimming. If you coach somebody in swimming, you pretend that your appendages are like way long, that your arms and legs are way longer than they are, so you swim differently and more powerfully, and they're not longer.
Mm-hmm.
But if you operate as if they are, you have more power and more control.
Oh,
So I would say that would be one of the
I like
bits
that
of
because
knowledge.
now you're talking my language. We're getting into the kind of the act as if mentality. Or I saw a quote the other day. I'm going to butcher this, but it's basically like there's not really a destiny. There's just like you have the power to create your own life and own circumstance.
Exactly.
So yes, I love.
But if that's used to as a guilt trip on yourself, or oh look at what a mess I've made, that's not the idea of this
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
at all.
yeah,
That's where it goes wrong when people are, and when people are critical of that thing. And you're not, and are you crazy and all of
yeah.
that? And it's like, but if you understand it's a construct,
Mhm.
but very real, you're
Mhm.
really going to operate that way,
Yeah,
then it does become so.
yeah. It's very. Are you into like stoicism at all? Are you ever read anything about stoicism or anything like
Yes.
that? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very that it's a very stoic
There's a whole
mentality.
philosophy
Yeah.
that's it's here now and it's based on other things. It's been in the world a lot.
Yes, yes.
And yeah, that's something that I've learned over the years that I know that I'd like to share that I think would be important. But you need to share it the right way or you sound like you're proselytizing.
That's good. Okay, I'm going to give you a random fact now,
Okay, good.
and you can comment on this as you shall. Let's see. This one always makes me laugh. I've seen this before. Arnold Schoenberg. Schoenberg.
Yes, the composer, Arnold Schoenberg.
Sure. I suffered from triskaidekaphobia, the fear of the number 13. Um, and he died at 76. 7 plus 6 equals 13 on Friday the 13th. That is the random fact.
Um, so it would be something to. This is interesting because people who are into numerology and
Yes.
astrology. I've always been felt I was bad with numbers, not great at math and things like that.
Really?
Even though composing is very
I
mathematical.
was just about to say that. Like
No, it really
music is
is. But
basically
I
math.
wasn't my conscious mind. That's why I didn't compose anything till I was 30.
Mm.
I had to let go something. I didn't have to learn something to compose. I knew loads. I've been to I've been to tons of Broadway shows and I knew music. I loved opera. I knew how to play the piano really nicely,
Mm.
but I had no idea I couldn't sight read music
Mm.
very well, and the structure of music, I got at college, I got like a D in harmony class, the one
Oh.
harmony class that I took. I couldn't approach music that way. Uh, my unconscious understands the math of it.
Interesting.
It's all there, and it really is like uh, the fact that I can write is a total miracle. And frankly, I don't know. It's not to brag, but I don't know many. I'm trying to think of an instance where somebody didn't write anything at all in their whole life and then wrote a show that got to Broadway, wrote the
Yeah.
music to a show that got to Broadway. Successful or
Yeah.
not, I mean, a whole show. I'm trying to think of somebody else who ever did that. I don't think it's happened.
I don't know if it's
It was
happened.
like because I knew I compare it to Helen Keller when she was, if you look at the movie of The Miracle Worker, her
Mhm.
teacher, she was completely she couldn't hear and she couldn't see. So she just didn't she was just an animal. And the teacher comes and really has to force her a lot to and she uh what's the word? She keeps doing these words. Her hand
Mhm.
is spelling out things into
Mhm.
Helen Keller's hand, and Helen Keller has no idea what they are, but she knows how to spell it. She'll
Mhm.
do the repeat, and she has this huge vocabulary. She has a huge vocabulary, and she doesn't know what any of it means. She just knows the vocabulary, but it doesn't connect with
Yeah.
anything. So with me, when I wrote, when I was trying to before I realized I could compose Starmites myself, I was the idea that I knew I had to find a composer. I'm trying to write to transpose things that Jim Steinman wrote, that I wrote the lyrics to, onto to tape record it, and I had a piano that was a half tone too high, so I'm trying to listen to it and transpose, and in the midst of that, something hit me like, oh, a chord is three notes. Even if it's 20 notes or it's really three. It's a triad. That's the form. And everything else is just a variation on that. And it's three notes. And I can only put it into words, but it hit me. I knew, I think I can compose. And from that moment on, I could. And I wrote the song Starmites right away. I wrote this show, in order.
That
And it just came to, I just sort of I took a tape recorder and I just played myself and I was singing the song and I'd think up the words and blah blah blah, and some of it would be terrible and just gibberish on the keyboard, and some of it would be really good, and I'd have to then go back and painstakingly listen to what I had done as this genius person over there just improvising all this stuff. I had that I'll take credit
Yeah.
for as a person in this body. I'll take credit for that. I can't take credit for the other stuff. That just happened. That's something that's
Yeah.
you see God or my
Yeah.
unconscious or whatever it is. Yeah, I couldn't. You can't really take credit for it. You can take credit for being the person who had it happen to. But the hard work of all that other stuff,
Mhm.
it's really hard. The only thing that makes it possible is that it's fun for you. And I'm friends with Teller of Penn and Teller.
Uh-huh.
I'm friends with Penn too, but Teller and I went to school together. And oh yeah, magic. It's it's the same thing with doing a magic trick. The secrets are out there. You can learn how to do it. It's just really hard and
Mhm.
boring.
Yeah.
That's why people don't know how to do these things.
Yeah.
You could look it up in a book how to
Yes.
do the hardest things or
Yeah.
what Houdini did, but it's not reading about it. It's like the training that you have to go through to do the sleight of hand and to do it all and learn how to do it. People don't want to.
Not at all.
That's the secret of magic.
Yeah.
And once you take apart magic, like I directed their first show, actually, Penn and Teller's very first show, and they said, "Do you want to know how the tricks are done?" I said, "Of course." And then they showed me how they did the first trick, and I said, "I don't want to know anymore. I don't want to know." It ruined the whole thing. It was so nothing. Once you know how it's done, you're watching this amazing piece of magic, and once you know how it's done, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. You have to. I think.
you know.
I think that creative genius is in probably everyone, but it's
It
it's
is.
wanting
That's
to.
what I'd like
Yeah.
everybody to
Yeah.
know. It is. It's there, and it's like Jim said to me. I was furious at him. I thought he was being the most selfish. After all the work I had done for him and everything. He said, "Well, I think why don't you compose it yourself?" He meant it. Because he knew himself. I mean, he if you know people who have that kind of what we call genius or whatever it is, they're just a person.
Mhm.
It's just we've figured out some access to it. It's
Mhm.
it's not it's figuring out isn't the right word because you don't figure it out.
Mhm.
You open yourself up to it. You just let it happen. I think that's happening. I think computer stuff is really helping with that now.
Yeah. Oh.
You know, I look at like some younger people. Is it Billie Eilish? Is that how you pronounce her name? And
Yeah.
her brother and all that, what they're doing. And actually, I'm working a lot with computers now too to do it. It's just I'm a
Well, I mean that
dummy, but
tracks.
I'm also can do amazing stuff too. And what I compose sounds completely different than what I compose at the piano.
Mhm.
You know, but I think people, if more people can do this than they
Mhm.
realize.
Yeah. I think that tracks that you would be interested in technology because you have already. I mean, being interested in sci-fi, I think the connection just kind
Yeah.
of it just happens. I'm very interested in tech and the things that you can do now just as a creative are
Yeah.
vastly amazing. I mean, from creating artwork to creating music to having a program pretty much edit everything for you, or at least do like a super base edit of whether it be like
Yeah.
audio or video or photography or whatever. It's
I'm
just
making a
amazing.
video of a cabaret I just did a couple of months ago on Final Cut Pro,
Okay.
and I knew enough to put together nice things for a long time, but now I'm really studying it. And there's so much you can get any lesson you want on YouTube. And, by the person you want to be taught
Yeah.
by.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm doing the same thing with music. I always wanted when I retired, when I had enough money, when I retired, I wanted to go back to music school and really go over harmony
Hmm.
carefully and learn composition in a more direct way. But I don't have the amount of money to retire, so I can't do it. So instead, I've been doing it on the internet,
Yeah.
YouTube. It's better than having a live teacher
Mhm.
because you can rerun it over and over again,
Yeah.
and you don't
Yeah.
feel stupid, by having to ask questions. So I'm also learning a lot about the things that I can already do unconsciously. All these amazing harmonies and things like that. Now it's even more powerful if you know how to do it consciously.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. Let me at least ask this last. Okay, so your musical Starmites has been
And by
described.
the way, this is like that's what Starmites is about. What I just said
Oh,
before about she has it completely inside her to do all this stuff. She is, she's Milady, the savior of inner space. It's all been decreed, and she's got it all there, and she keeps saying, no, 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 I don't. And she only does it at the end when she absolutely has to. And then she has to own up to the fact she is a superhero.
see, that answered the question without you
Oh,
without
but
even
really,
knowing
I
it.
didn't mean to interrupt, but
No, it's
I would have
great.
forgot.
That's great. I was just gonna say, your musical Starmites has been described as a vest pocket musical nebula. You said this earlier of cheerful nuttiness by the New York Times. Was something you want our indie fringe community to know about Catalyst Repertoire's production specifically, or the world of the Starmites in general?
I did
And
answer that
you
question.
did you
Yes.
that which is
Because
great.
it is a vest pocket nebula of cheerful nuttiness, and it's also, has some profound stuff in it, some things that really need to be said and you can learn from. Um, and there's like a Broadway so-called intelligentsia when Starmice was on that was just turned its nose on it. Like, what is this?
Mhm.
So it wasn't allowed to have its life on Broadway, but it's right away. It's had its life all over
Yeah.
the country, and I've had this done in Japan and Japanese
Oh
a
wow.
long time ago. They should do it again. And also, there's a Spanish version that they did in Panama, which
What?
they did fly me out to see, which was
Nice.
absolutely wonderful to
Nice.
hear it. And the songs are in Spanish too. It was amazing. But the kids were bilingual, so I could talk to them all afterwards and
Oh,
everything like that. It was like a bilingual school,
that's
so that was fun
amazing.
too.
That is amazing. You know, what fascinates me about everything you've said is that the ability to take something just almost out of nothingness. It's in you. You took that,
Hmm.
and then that is
It
essentially.
really is out of nothing.
It, I don't want to say it, but it created so many other avenues for you going to Panama, going to Japan. Like that's just so amazing to
Hmm.
me to build something and then it resonates with people and then it creates like it branches out to so many other things. I think
Yeah,
as
and
creators,
that's the
as
other.
artists, this thing happens. This is, but you can essentially create your own life. You can take whatever life is throwing at
Yes,
you and
you can,
and use that
but
as
only
fuel.
if you know that you can do it.
Yeah, yeah.
You can't if you're trapped in your mind is trapped that you can't do it.
Mhm.
Like for all those years, I told myself I couldn't write music because I didn't know how to write it down and I didn't know the traditional way of doing it,
Mhm.
which I still don't.
Yeah,
But Jim Steinman didn't either. Here was my friend for you. He didn't write it down.
yeah.
Um, and now there's not only the ability of to create the music on the internet, but it's also what about just skipping Broadway
Hmm.
and like putting one's work out on the
Yeah,
internet, which I
yeah.
think is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Get it
Ah,
out. Then it's there. It doesn't need to be Broadway.
yeah. I'm
That's
all about
more
that.
people will see it this way.
Yeah, I'm all about artists taking the initiative and putting stuff out there. I mean, so many people have become bigger just because a lot of the gatekeepers, quote unquote, don't accept it or don't give its due credit in the time that you thought it was, and so having the internet has become like the great equalizer for a lot of the creative work. So
Yeah.
yes, please do that. We need more people like you to do that. Any last words you want to leave for
I just want
audience,
to
young creators?
thank Casey and this group for doing it. It's really been it's exciting to be here, and yeah, the people who find Starmites, it has to be found. It's not just out there, like Hamilton or something like that, or even Little Shop.
Yeah.
Which was around the same time that sort of the same time as Starmites we were creating itself. That one off Broadway, that one went through the major success, and then Disney and all of that stuff. Mine's a different road. I didn't make as much money off of it, but this is my path.
This might be your time now. I mean,
That would be
especially
nice.
with
Yeah. Well, it is my time, but it'd be nice if it was the way I envision it.
the content wars are crazy now, so don't be surprised if you get a call from like Netflix or somebody and they're like, "Yeah, we want to do this." These companies.
It was
need
designed to have sequels and action figures and everything like that. It's just it was like I was a theater person, so theater wasn't ready for it.
It might be coming. It might be coming. Success is not linear, is what I've heard. So, but thank you so much.
Thank you
for coming out and talking to me. Thank you. I appreciate it. You said a lot of things that resonated with me, and I hope resonate with our audience. Shout out to Casey Ross and Catalyst Repertory Theater, because everything I've seen that they've done so far this year, I've been working at Fringe for almost a year now, and everything I've seen has been incredible. And so I'm excited to see what will happen with Starmites.
Yeah, I want to compliment the cast too. I don't know if I said that yet, but they really did an incredible job. When you do Starmites, you have to be really funny, and you have to be a terrific actor, and you have to sing really, really hard stuff. So,
I'm excited. I'm so excited. All right. Well, we will leave you here. Thank you for tuning in this week. Sorry for the long delay, but if you've been following us for a while, you probably know why. We just went through Fringe Fest, which almost 70 shows, and it was a lot. It was a lot going on here at the theater. So we're excited to be back. Barry Keating, thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
Very cool. And this conversation was very inspirational, so I appreciate it.
Thanks. A pleasure.
Take care.